So, hot take here. 86 Season 2 was far and away less interesting to watch than Season 1. In fact, by my own personal standards, I think it's a little bit mid. Season 1 to me just hit this nice golden spot that made it one of my favorite anime of all time. But I just cannot say the same for the rest of 86. So I've read the novels through halfway into Volume 5. So I've read 1 through maybe, I don't know, halfway, a quarter way through Volume 5. So I think, and then I've seen almost all of Season 2. At the time of recording this, it's not all out yet, but I know how it ends. So in this video, I'm just going to kind of explain just some of the areas in which I don't think 86 Season 2 worked for me personally, and where I think 86 Season 1 very much succeeded. That said, I do want to preface this by saying, despite whatever we hot take the title clickbait, whatever I say here, I do think 86 Season 2 it's fine, it's a good series, it's just really not to my tastes. So, I've got 3 parts here. Part 1 is just about what made 86 so special, or 86 Season 1 so special to begin with for me, because I do think that 86 Season 1 is not the through line that carries through to the rest of the series. The biggest thing that stuck with me for 86 Season 1, and to a lesser extent Book 1 of 86, was just the tragedy of the 86. In the anime especially, it really plays up just how awful the situation is. Because the anime, spoiler alert for Season 1, ends pretty much saying they died. Yes, 1 episode later they reveal that they're still alive, and in the epilogue of Book 1, there is a part that, does a giant time skip to past Book 3 that says they're still alive. But if you go off the anime alone, which is what I went off of when I first got exposed to this series, by all intents and purposes, it killed off all of the main cast except for Vladilena. And for me, that kind of kills the ending a bit, in a way, at least as a standalone. It kills it because it feels like it ruins the political, sort of the political messaging here. This series is supposed to, at least in Book 1 and in Season 1, it really outlines just the ways in which societies can be ignorant of how racist they're actually being. The different ways in how those at the top can create systems to hold the oppressed down. And I kind of feel having that gut punch moment at the end was what really, really drove that messaging home comparatively. And I think one of the biggest, most important parts of that messaging was the fact that we were seeing this all through Vladilena's eyes. Because Vladilena is, by all intents and purposes, our eyes into this world with as high hopes for her society as we have. And the series is just progressively about her realizing just how fucked her society actually is, even once she knows, even though she knows and she realizes it's fucked to begin with. Killing off the characters and having Vladilena really, truly find that full, finding her way in life and finding her purpose in all of this to try changing things. For me, it was a really good open-ended ending, and I can see why they went on to a Season 2, but just fundamentally, as it stands, I kind of wish they ended, at least compared to what we have now. I will actually get into a little bit later on what else I think could have happened. Alright, so just as the second part to this sort of rant here, everything past Season 1 in Volume 1 of the light novel. The appeal of 86 past its first season, and I see this in the discourse online as well, is very much so the military conflict and the effect it has on its characters. Now, full disclosure here, if you've ever seen me review Tanya for the channel, you can kind of know that I am very, very uninterested in military conflict and the horrors of war. I just feel that it's such an overtread genre, and I feel that the characters, the way the characters interact with that story, just does nothing for me. And then the military tactics to me just aren't all that interesting to watch play out. That said, it still has really great action. Oh my god, the animation on this is... I'm going to be 100% clear here. I watched some of the more recent episodes prior to where we're currently at the time waiting for more episodes, and I'd be lying if I said that action scene in that last episode didn't hook me. But everything leading to that was just... ooh. So, what I feel this season really lacked... it lacked the theming of Season 1. That's the big thing here. I'm not saying we needed to keep Vladilena in here, because Vladilena really has a much, much, much lessened role within the second 2 novels and Season 2. But Vladilena's role really isn't properly fulfilled in Season 2 and in the second and third novels. There is no eyes into how society views the 86, and there is no sort of realization about that society. It's just the 86 dealing with the Federacy's blend of bullshit, which the show never quite... like, it wants to make the statement the Federacy's brand of bullshit is as bad as the Republic's in some ways, but it never quite appropriately makes that point. And I think that's largely just because we don't get this... We just don't have a Vladilena character this season. That's not entirely true, but I'll get to that, actually. The 86ers, I think, worked a lot better in Season 1 when they had that... because in 86 Season 1, we had a much larger cast of 86ers than we ended with. And that was the case basically up till the final episodes. They just slowly die pretty unceremoniously across Season 1, with a few characters having major arcs. And that's what makes you really feel and connect with them. The only character you can really get a gauge for will survive at least to the end of Season 1 is Shin. I don't quite get that with Season 2 and Books 2 and 3. In Season 2 and Books 2 and 3, the 86ers feel pretty invincible. They feel almost like super soldiers on the battlefield compared to everyone else there. You never get the idea that, oh, this character might just drop dead, like just be dead by the end of this conflict. You never get that anymore. And I just have to say, Shin's arc, it's kind of repetitive, actually. Just too many times throughout the season, both Season 1, like, it starts in Season 1, but then in Season 2 it comes to a bit of a head where Shin is constantly finding himself going into that mentality of just being this dog of war in a way. And I can understand that as a character arc, but as a sole character arc to get us through the show, it gets really, really repetitive and really boring to watch after a while. At least from where I'm sitting. Before I get to what really annoyed me about this season, Vladilena is in this season. And like I said earlier, in a very limited amount. But it almost feels pointless, like they were teasing another show that just did not happen. Because we get, like, Vladilena's new squad, they give them personalities, and then they unceremoniously stop appearing until the very end of the season, or until, like, basically the last scene of the last book, they finally reappear. And then you'll see them again at the end of Season 2, presumably. They ended Season 1 a little differently than the book ended, but... so they might do that with Season 2, but presumably they'll appear in the last episode of Season 2 as well. But that to me is actually kind of annoying. I'd rather Vladilena just didn't appear at all, and we got that full-on catharsis of finally seeing her again at the end, as opposed to getting her sprinkled here and there so the audience never quite misses her, but Shin does. Okay, enough beating around the bush. This is where it goes from me kind of being bored by the series to me actively disliking an element of it. Frederica is annoying. Like, holy shit, Frederica is annoying. Frederica just gets introduced as just like this little girl. She's, I'm pretty sure, supposed to fill the Vladilena role of giving you a perspective into the society. But instead you're kind of given a perspective into noble politics for a nation that doesn't exist anymore. And they play it off like she's supposed to be more mature than she looks, but she's really not. They do so many things throughout the series that's just... they want to play down the childishness and make that her thing is that they're treating her like a child, but no, she's childish, and it's just... it doesn't fit with the arcs that have been built up so far for any of these characters, and she just kind of feeds into Shin's other, like, his own repetitive arc. Oh, she's the one part of this series that, like, downright annoyed me. I don't know. I feel that Season 2 completely missed the mark of what made Season 1 so special for me. And I don't think it needed to be that way. Because Part 3, I guess, is just the question, should Season 1 have been the end of 86? Should it have ended at Volume 1 as a one-off? And I don't actually think so. I do think that there is enough loose ends left in Volume 1 and in Season 1 to where the series absolutely should have continued. That said, it needed to preserve the element of tragedy in some way. And this was where I think Volume 1 of the novel kind of ruined it. Volume 1 of the novel spoils two things in its epilogue, its second epilogue in particular. It spoils A, that Shin is still alive. And B, and this is a big spoiler alert for Season 2, there's a part in Season 2 where, kind of off-screen, it's heavily implied that Vladilena made a last stand in the city with the Legion against the Legion, who, due to a railgun-type Legion shooting at the city walls, the Legion spill in, and Vladilena has to organize the 86, not because she has high authority and command, because she was demoted, but because they all respect her now, they help her protect the walls. And it's implied there, at a certain point, that she died, or at least that's what the characters are supposed to think. The ending of Volume 1 and its second epilogue, it's actually it's sort of like the cliffhanger reunion of the 86ers in Vladilena. So that epilogue not only spoiled that the 86ers were still alive, but it spoiled for anyone reading that was going to go on to read Volume 2 or 3 that Vladilena was still alive. Vladilena or the 86ers, one of them needed to be, like, you needed to be on your seat as an audience member about one of them, whether or not they were still alive. In my opinion, Season 2 should have either focused on Vladilena and her new squad, because Vladilena goes through this entire arc almost off-screen about becoming the bloody Lena, willing to do anything to keep these 86ers alive, and fighting this war for what it is. And the 86ers, who go through this sort of arc of adjusting to the Federacy, if they had split this into 2 seasons, I wouldn't have minded, but by trying to merge them into one story and keeping them separate, they really neglected Vladilena, while also sort of getting rid of any tension that you might not see Vladilena in. Because if they reintroduce Vladilena that way, of course the 86ers are going to see Vladilena again. And with Season 2, if you see the 86ers right off the bat survived, of course Vladilena is still going to see them again at some point. That's just a given. Whereas if you followed up Season 1 by only giving you one perspective, either set could have been the main character, and you would have shared in their uncertainty as to who's alive and who's dead, which would have helped the payoff later when they do eventually reunite and the stories remerge. And it would have preserved that element of tragedy of the ending, because the ending's tragedy can either be the 86ers are probably dead, or the ending's tragedy can be the 86ers left Vladilena behind and she's probably dead. That said, I need to fully acknowledge here, I'm the weird one. By all accounts, while I do have my issues with the storytelling here, 86 Season 2 should entertain me far more than it does. There's a lot of action scenes. 86 Season 2 very clearly pivots the series to being more focused on the action. And I think to literally anybody else but me, that's going to be what's more interesting to you. I think all in all, it wasn't my cup of tea, but I can't go out. I'm not going to go out and say that it's bad or didn't deserve to continue. That said, touching on what goes on afterwards, I do think that the series never quite regains that level of social commentary of the first book, which is really just what held me in. And I think that's the biggest flaw of 86 Season 2 and beyond. Alright, well, I guess I'll see you next time, folks, whatever I'm next in. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and watch our other stuff if you're interested. Go watch Seki's her own 86 analysis. It's very good from what I understand.